welcome to Cyber Dialogues, the podcast where we go behind the headlines to unpack the biggest topics in cybersecurity. I'm your host, Sharmin Jassal. The online world is changing so fast that it's not just about what we need to protect our kids from anymore, it's about how we help them navigate it safely. Today, I'm joined by two incredible guests, Bual and Michelle Yao, co-founders of Cyberlite, a leader in cyber safety and AI education. We'll be talking about Cyberlite's partnership with Palo Alto Networks on the AI Safety in the Classroom Toolkit. We'll break down this toolkit to help you confidently start and keep going with what I like to call the talk about online safety. And with the school holidays just around the corner, there's really no better time to have it. Welcome to the show, Michelle, Nina. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Let's get right into it. Tell us about yourselves, Cyberlite, and what is Cyberlite's mission and what do you hope to accomplish?
Thank you very much for having us. So a little bit about Cyberlite. We started 6 years ago in Singapore, and our real concentration was how do we speak to children from the age of 7 to 17 years of age? When we were looking out there about what resources they have to talk about their cyber base and to be safe, we found there was very little out there, especially something that was engaging and exciting for them to look at. So Cyberlite really concentrates on how to communicate about cyber safety, digital well-being, and now AI literacy, which has become the forefront of a lot of conversations within the education sector. We do this across 16 countries. So we have a lot of insight to how children are actually acting online, reacting, and what they require.
Yeah, and as Nina said, we did start in Singapore, but we are active in 16 countries across Asia Pacific, which means that we actually work in a lot of developing countries that don't necessarily have the same technology and infrastructure as Singapore or even Australia or more developed nations in this region. And so one of the key missions that we have at Cyberlite today is really understanding and making sure that the cyber safety education that we produce, all the resources and workshops and webinars do become sustainable and equitable for kids all over the world. Whether you're dialing in from a remote classroom in India to receiving our printed textbooks in Indonesia, we want to make sure that every child has the right and the access to cyber safety education.
Fantastic. Tell me more about the AI safety in the classroom toolkit, which was recently published. What's that one about?
So the toolkit is designed to help parents and educators who aren't necessarily cybersecurity experts or AI experts in guiding students on how to be safe using AI tools. And that's one thing that we've found a lot of the AI conversation these days when it comes to students and education is that no one's really talking about safety. A lot of people are talking about literacy, about how students are using it for homework or for exams, but there's less of a spotlight on the safety issues, and that's where our toolkit really comes in. So each lesson is designed in a modular format. You only need 30 to 45 minutes to complete a lesson, and there are 4 lessons in the toolkit. So you can do them in any order that you want, and it goes through a range of different topics like AI recommendation engines to AI deepfakes.
I'd like to touch on that toolkit again, and I like to call it the talk. And this is how you stay safe online, and especially with AI and generative AI, so easily accessible to kids, like you said, 7 to 17. So how do you, what advice have you got out there for parents for them to actually start having the talk?
So when it comes to parents, our advice really starts with be aware of where AI is in your children's world online. I think a lot of parents don't realize that a lot of the apps they're using on a day-to-day basis have AI and the algorithm in there. So that's one thing. And then how are your children interacting with AI? How are they using it? So in a case where my children use it, they use different words, terminologies. They're going to it for very different reasons to why I'm going to it. So have those really open conversations with them. Why do you like your ChatGPT? Why do you call it your bestie? Sort of understand their relationship and where they are actually in their landscape of AI. Those are some really important conversations to start with.
Yeah, and I think when we were developing this toolkit, we recognize that we're in such a unique position in this time where we're all learning about AI technology at the same time as the teens are or as the children are. And in fact, I think anecdotally and statistically, we know that children are adopting ChatGPT and Co-Pilot into their everyday lives a lot faster than adults are. We know just from talking to friends even that adults are not using ChatGPT as comfortably as the students that we get to talk to. So one of the main goals and the first things that we highlight in our teacher toolkit is, don't worry if you're brand new to AI. That's okay. Make it known that we're all here to learn together, and work through the activities with the students to learn about bias, to learn about how AI can fabricate and make up facts. And that's why we created it with a lot of hands-on learning activities in the toolkits.
Would you recommend parents and teachers probably get together first, go through the toolkit before they launch it on the kids?
I think both. There's always a learning there when you're in a room with a child. So it's always nice to do it yourself and know where you're going with the conversation, but don't feel like you need to do too much homework or prep, because the guide really facilitates the conversation and then the children will lead it onwards. So those are great ways to go with it. So don't feel like it's a heavy thing to do. You can pick it up in the holiday period and say, let's go through this together. And you will comfortably be able to go through it and have a conversation with your child without being overwhelmed.
One of the toolkit's lessons is about detecting deepfakes and digital clones. So how does spotting those AI-generated content protect kids? I know as adults, we sometimes have problems detecting a deepfake. How do we educate children in first detecting a deepfake and then how to process that?
And that's a really interesting question. So now we're seeing statistically 60% of what our children are seeing on YouTube is made by AI. And a lot of this we call AI slop. What I mean by AI slop is really low quality content, which has no meaning or thought behind it and is really not educating or supporting our child at all. This is starting really young, from 3, and it goes up to, adulthood. Now, the problem with younger children is they can't critically think through, is this true or not, without a nudge or a prompt. So it's very important that we start that nudging and prompting so early. So where I grew up, and I will age myself here, we started talking about sourcing. I'm probably 13, 14 when we started writing essays. Now we need to bring that conversation right down and have that critical thinking. Is it real? Why has somebody made it? Is it manipulated content? Now, these words can obviously be changed to the age appropriation of the child, but now nearly everything they're seeing is something that needs to be thought through, not just in terms of quality and grade of the product, because that now, as you said, we find it so hard ourselves to identify, is this fake or not? And that intuitively and naturally will come to the children because they're growing up with it. It's more the why behind it. Why somebody made a deep fake of this? And it becomes very personal for children as well. If a deep fake has been made about one of their favorite characters or their school peer, it becomes to emotionally affect them. And so we need to be able to tell them there's a real world online and now there's an AI world online. They need to know the difference between the two.
And on the topic of deepfakes is actually something that we teach within a topic we call AI media literacy, which also falls under digital media literacy. And that's something that we're finding kids younger and younger not being able to differentiate between what's real and fake. And in our framework, this is, we say that this is going to be even harder to teach as technology progresses, because if you compare the videos from 2 years ago when we saw Will Smith eating spaghetti, and that was kind of the highlight of what AI could do back in the day, until today what Sora can do with just an image of your face. Technology is only going to get better, and so deepfakes and synthetic media using AI is going to get harder to detect. So that's something that we do teach children at a very young age to really understand and question, as Nina said, what's real, don't trust everything that you see online, and remember to verify the authenticity of a source.
Those are very good pointers. I want to touch on what Nina said earlier about how children take it quite personally when they see a deep fake, especially if it's of their classmates or peer. In that light, how would you educate children to actually protect their personal identity?
Yeah, personal identity is one of the most important topics we teach. And for children, we frame it as digital identity. Again, this exposes our age. We have an offline world and an online world. Children today don't see their worlds like that. So sharing in the playground feels the same as sharing online. And again, it's up to us to use that critical thinking of what you're putting out there can be used against you. And in a world where it's very easy by the click of a button, a bad actor, to collate all that information about our child and then create, passports or insurance details later down the line and really use this as bad motivation, we need to start thinking and getting our children to understand what they post online stays online and their digital footprint is created. So it's very important for a parent to engage with a child in understanding everything they post. They need to consider why. The best way to do this as a parent is also think about what you're posting yourself of your child and whether that could be used in a bad or negative way. And ensure every time you post with your child, you ask your child's consent. From that early age, they start to get that cyber hygiene behavior that if anything goes online, I get to dictate yes or no, I want it up there. And they also start to consider when I post something up there, is it good or bad for me? So we have to start with very simple conversations of, is it good? Is it bad? Can it be used against me? And then to think about masking yourself. How can I hide my identity? How can I make sure I'm safe from AI taking it all and creating this image of me, which I might not like? Things like a 13-year-old could put a picture of themselves up thinking it's funny, but it can become the class meme. And then it can go viral across the high school or the middle school, and it really impacts that child. So things we may not consider being weaponized, a child can consider it in their own frame of reference of the cyberspace.
Nina, you talked about consent. That's very interesting. When would a parent start having that conversation about consent? Asking a 2-year-old, can I post your picture online? Is that realistic? What's the best way?
Absolutely. We teach that from the age of 2. So when we're talking to 2-year-olds, we're obviously talking to the trusted adults in the room. That's a parent and a teacher. And even with lesson plans for teachers, we ask them at that age to teach consent. We've always done this in terms of body and touch, who's allowed to touch you, where you're allowed to speak to a child. We now just need to add the digital world to conversations we've been having for decades with our children. So yes, a 2-year-old needs to give consent before that picture of their birthday party goes up there.
Yeah, and we teach consent throughout the years, not just at 2 years old, but we continuously bring it up every single age, because while it's a simple enough concept, like having someone ask for your consent or your permission to post a picture online, it gets more and more nuanced as the child becomes a teenager, as they're entering social spaces where maybe other people might be posting photos of them on their social media, and training kids to really understand that a photo is also theirs. They also have ownership over their digital image is really important when we then deal with cases where cyberbullying or non-consensual intimate images are created of the student. They actually are able to recognize and understand that was done without my consent. This feels wrong, and I need to go and report it to a trusted adult.
That's a really good point. Ensuring that children understand that the photos that have been taken of them belongs to them. It's their property.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And on the subject of social media, which might get some differing views here, Do you think that the Australian government's decision to ban social media for all children under the age of 16 is a wise move? And I also saw in the news a couple of days ago that Malaysia is intending to go that way as well. What are your thoughts?
So that's an interesting topic. In terms of whether it's a good idea or not, time will tell, and we really support anybody who's coming out and actually putting those policies into play. However, what we'd like to really emphasize to parents is don't put your foot off the pedal because you think something else is being done about it. The genius in the room is the 14-year-old who wants their social media. So there will be children who will travel to destinations across the cyberspace where they may have not been before. That's not within the ban. They may be on encrypted channels with Telegram, Kik, WhatsApp. It's not that they stop being social, and it's not that these behaviors will go away. It is that they will be using their online spaces in different ways. So don't think that we don't have to have this conversation till they're 16 and then they suddenly get a phone and they're wise and intelligent. We know many adults who still don't know what they're doing, namely our grandparents, right, who are still posting things we wish they didn't. So this topic never goes away. So a social media ban is there. It will hopefully support the situation, but it cannot mitigate the situation, especially if we're speaking on AI and our children having relationships with AI friends. If they're not speaking to their real friends in the real world, are they now speaking to AI friends? So we've got to see where the risk moves as well. So who knows if we've opened a can of worms or we've actually supported the situation? Only time will tell. None of us have that predictive ability.
Yeah, I think as people in the child online protection space, we're always happy when a government or when big tech actually starts taking some action really on protecting our children on social media and these kind of shared spaces with adults. But one thing that we're proponents of at Cyberlite is education, right? The education shouldn't go away, as Nina said. It needs to be taught in school from a young age because even if they're not on social media, they're still on online games like Roblox, like Fortnite and Minecraft, where they do still share these public spaces with adults through chats and interactions there. So online safety and cyber hygiene skills still need to be developed because one thing that we don't want is the idea that once they're 16, they already know how to function in these online spaces and we just let them go into the wild with no training whatsoever.
So have the conversations early and have them consistently.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And just remember, a 14-year-old will go find something naughty to do. So be aware.
I remember being 14, yes. We talked about consent and we talked about having conversations. I'd like to talk about ethical considerations. And how does the toolkit and how does Cyberlite view ethical considerations when kids are online and what they need to think about to ensure that they themselves are safe, their friends are safe, and in an extension of that, their parents, their household is also safe.
Yeah, so when we talk about ethical considerations, we're at the root of it talking about creating a responsible digital citizen, right? Where we want to encourage the child to be able to use technology in a fun way, in a beneficial way, because let's face it, when we talk about cyber safety, it does tend to get really dark and very gloomy very quickly when we start highlighting all the risks that can happen online. But it is a space that as adults, we use to work, we use to chat with our friends, we use to do a lot of different things online. So when we talk about digital citizenship with children, it is highlighting that technology can be a great, fun tool for you to use and enhance your education or find new hobbies. But there are also dark sides where bad actors lie. And the point is not to become the bad actor or not to have the teen then misuse AI tools to kind of go against their friends or to cyberbully their peers. So one of the questions that we get asked a lot is, how do we prepare them for AI? Should students even be using AI in the classroom? And our answer is not whether they'll use AI, but is whether or not they'll use it responsibly. And our goal, again, going back to the ethical concept, is to encourage ethical AI behaviors by asking students, will you still be able to think for yourself and critically think through different situations if AI disappeared tomorrow? Are you actually learning the different subjects in school, or are you using AI in an unethical way to cheat or to make shortcuts? And are you actually using AI for good?
AI for good. We talk about that a lot. And I think it needs to come into regular everyday conversations. And this tool definitely does that, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And when we go into schools and we run workshops and we have all these different types of activities that we give students, especially the different projects, and one of them is the AI for Good module within the toolkit, we see the creativity come out of them, right? They come up with the most brilliant ideas that us as adults or teachers in the room don't even think about. And they just need that prompt to help them think about how to use AI in a good way or in a really creative and unique way.
I am so excited for the next generation and the generations after that.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lovely thought that was given to me that, can you imagine what the world would look like if Steve Jobs, Einstein had AI? Now, that's exactly what the world looks like. So there's so much interesting stuff this generation will do with AI if they're pointed in the right direction. And I think that's where we need to open the conversation. So one of the exercises in the toolkit is, how can you solve food waste with AI? And giving them the space and the critical thinking tools and questions to go down that and consider, what would I use AI for as a companion to collect data and to collect knowledge to solve this big real world problem, opposed to, how do I use AI to cheat in my next exam, right? So it's a reframing of how that piece can be used that needs to be integrated into the classroom conversation or the parent conversation.
I feel like this toolkit is not just about staying safe, it's actually going to build the geniuses of the future.
We can only pray.
But that's a really nice way to wrap up our show today, Nina and Michelle. Thank you so much for joining me. But I just wanted to say that now is the perfect time, isn't it, with school holidays across the region happening, to download the toolkit and get started.
Absolutely. I think now's the right time to do it. And your children are already on it. So it's time for us to catch up.
Fantastic. Thank you again, both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. Join us again on Cyber Dialogues, brought to you by Palo Alto Networks, as we continue to explore the ever-changing landscape of cybersecurity across the Asia Pacific and Japan region.